Start recording. Give this a whirl. Okay, so I'm trying this in OBS, so if it sucks, it's OBS's fault. Alright, new setup. You can probably see some of the desolation of my apartment behind me, but aside from that, I'm really pleased with this new tower, new setup I've got. It looks really, really nice. Busted my ass, and I finally saved enough money I can actually eat something nice. So, so here we have the origins of my little Kung Fu hexcrawl. Got a hex map. That's something I made in Affinity Designer version 2. I'm really pleased with it. I did the hexes cattywampus where they usually are. I might change that, but I think for the short term, I think that's fine. I wanted to keep this very, very stripped down and simple, so it's just map and key. There might be a little more that I add before the key to kind of contextualize everything. But you're seeing more or less what you're going to get here. Very, very friendly and usable. You know, the characters and the players are going to be in one of these hexes or more. And then you just go to the key and you just read off what's there and then you run it. It should be super user-friendly. I designed most of the exploration mechanics for my game around hex crawls and dungeon crawls. Those are time-tested methods that are really bedrock simple to use, and they produce great results. So, making certain that my game capitalized on that kind of inherited wisdom was really important to me. So, I don't know a good way to automate or streamline all the numerical aspects of this process, which is a little bit annoying. I don't really want to list every single hex. What I might do is just list hexes that have something in them, because when you do a hex crawl, another reason I wanted to take hex crawls and dungeon crawls and use inherited wisdom like that is because when you have those things, there are formulas and methods for prepping in a really effective way, right? That's good at the table and easy prep load on the GM. Now, the traditional hexcrawl is very prep heavy at first. You think of the world and then you put it down in very concrete terms. And it is very prep light for the rest of the campaign. You really don't have much to do afterwards. For the most part, you just record what the players did and maybe think of some consequences for that. A lot of people just roll on charts or have like a faction system. I know Taylor Lane infamously runs super low prep games just off faction systems and hex crawls. Great method, 100% great method. And I want to do stuff like that for this too. I want for GMs, I want to do the heavy prep load for GMs who use this so that you have just something you can immediately be like, okay, just drop some adventures in here, drop your party in here, let them go. You know, what I found with hex crawls and other inherited wisdom is that you want to start right here, right in the middle, and that way players have a lot of room to like explore all the different sides. I might add another row or so here. I've got a little bit of room to grow. But yeah, you started in, you know, what is this, 9106. I will probably put the biggest city right here, you know, just so players have like a springboard and they have tons of direction to go wherever they want to go. But you don't have to. You can, like, and another thing I'm going to be doing with this hex crawl is I'm going to be putting a lot of really super dangerous and difficult terrain around the perimeter. The reason you want to do this is because you want it to be hard to escape your hex crawl, the stuff you've already prepped, and you want to have a good reason why, when they get past that barrier, there's another different hex crawl, right? Another big, different, new region. Like, for example, if I was so inclined, and I definitely am, I would put Yoon Suin on the far side of this thing. I would probably, like, in the north, I would probably just put, like, a really foreboding mountain pass that is super cold, and then on the other side of that, you go past the cap, you go down south, it's just going to be Yoon Suin. I'm not even going to fuck with it. Because you can use Yoon Suin. And once I get the second edition of Yoon Suin, I intend to make a conversion guide, one for all the stuff in there, what the equivalent stats would be for Lone Wolf Fist. So if you want to use Yunsuin, specifically the new version of Yunsuin, you totally can. You can just be like, if you have that supplement, bam, now it's compatible with Lone Wolf Fist. And I like to do that in general for OSR stuff, because I play a lot of OSR games. They're huge because D&D is like the 800-pound gorilla in the room when it comes to content, like actual stuff. And although it's not a wuxia fantasy, you can use a lot of the more zany stuff, especially like Deep Carbon Observatory. Silent Titans is another good one where you could pretty easily do Silent Titans. And then I think that's in Beyond. I don't know if that's specifically OSR, but I mean it's a very, very similar system, right? It's all kind of D&D adjacent, more board stuff I want you to be able to use if you want to, because that's very thematically appropriate. So yeah, when it comes to that stuff, I want there to be some metrics by which you can convert. So if you want to use content you already have for OSR stuff, you can just drop it into here. And even if you're not an OSR person, you can repurpose what you have very easily at the table and have access to this huge library of effectively infinite library of extremely cool stuff that you can use as grist for your own hexcrawls. I do intend for the hexcrawl to be the core format for exploration. When it comes to actually playing the game and like digging into a given part of it, it's not so hexcrawly. It's a little closer to a dungeon crawl. Again, that's intentional. But of course, I put a lot of thought into how you explore and how you interact with the environment, because like wuxia has its own pace. It's very and RPGs have their own pace, and you want to make sure as much as possible that the players aren't just ripping through all of your crap. Like, you want them to dig in and take the time at the table to expand what you've written down. You want one sentence you write down to translate to a few hours of gameplay, ideally, And you want them interacting with NPCs. You want them making decisions that take some time and some internal inter-party debate. You want them fighting. Fight scenes, of course, take up a lot of real estate in terms of table time. And this is a game that funnels you towards fights. Like, it wants you punching the bad guys, and a lot. Like, all the encounter systems are really skewed towards you getting into a fight. And of course, the player proclivity when they have a lot of power is to solve problems with violence, right? Like, that's like the murder hobo motto. But rather than fighting that and saying, I don't want murder hobos, I invite them as a designer. I want the murder hobos. I want your table to be like, I'm just going to fucking punch this thing. I have an atomic super fist. Screw this guy. Screw the scorpion dude. I'm going to be in charge of this town. I not only want that to be something that's within their grasp, I want it to be almost the ideal player strategy. Because fight's the most interesting thing I designed for. They take a long time at the table, so they help to expand your content. They're fun for players and for GMs, and the whole game is designed around making those the centerpiece of the experience. I feel like D&D is more about exploration and logistics being the center of the experience. So you play in the old school style, because it's very dangerous, you have very low hit points, your ability to kill things is very limited. Even if you have fireball, you have a limited amount of fireballs you can cast per day, right? So the resource management is a really important part of D&D. The risk management is an important part of D&D, and it's about the dungeon delve. Going, hex crawls are the dangerous part. Getting to the dungeon. When you're in the dungeon, you have a more controlled environment, and that benefits you as a player because you can think defensively and strategically about how you interact with that environment and extract wealth and therefore XP from it. So, I feel like dungeon crawling is the core D&D experience. Not fighting. Fighting is a hazard that you should wisely avoid when dungeon crawling, especially at lower levels. In my game, fighting is the point. So you want to be in fights, and in some editions of D&D embrace that. 4th edition is a great example of an edition that embraces fights should be the centerpiece. 3rd kind of had that too. There was less exploration in 3rd and more fighting. 4th is all about fighting. It was almost not about exploration at all. And then in 5th, I feel like fighting is a really big. I would say fighting is about half of 5th, and the rest of it is supposed to be this isn't super well supported by the mechanics of the game, but I think the other half of it is intended to be role-playing, like talking to NPCs and interacting with stuff. I don't think exploration is a huge pillar of the actual design of Fifth Ed. Feel free to prove me wrong. I've done dungeon crawling, but I approach it in an old-school style, and I find that players are a little too competent to make that something that takes enough. The incentive structure of the game rewards them fighting, much like my game does. But if you want exploration to be the core thing in your game, you want to disincentivize fighting by making it very dangerous and risky. I mean, it should be high reward, right? You know, you kill the dragon, you get the gold, sure. But it should be more viable to think of a strategic and interesting way to avoid the fight with the dragon, right? That should be what you're actually trying to do. I'm going on a tangent here. So, the prep. The prep is the reason I'm doing this way. And you may be tempted to make your own hexcrawl stuff. And I wanted to kind of give you some insight into my method. Now, if you own the book, you already know some pretty broad stroke stuff. I am refining that a little bit because you want to constantly improve, right? And I haven't written down this advice yet because I haven't tested it yet. The advice in the book I've tested, and it seems like it works pretty well. This is new stuff I'm trying, and I'm trying it this way. And the method I'm using to help me tackle this big project is to break it into ever smaller, more bite-sized pieces that I can jot out very quickly and get those high-impact, high-table real estate, that time-wise prep out of it. So, I started by just numbering all my hexes, counting them. I think there's 219. Simplifying math, I round that to 220, which is that big around, and then going by inherited wisdom for hexcrawls, I broke down what content should be there. So I have the following: 22-ish, 10%, 22-ish of these hexes should be what I call big nodes. In other words, a node with 5 or more. I can't remember what nomenclature fields. All right, so each one of these is a tract, right? Each one of these hexes is equivalent to one tract prep-wise. And a really dense tract has 5 or more fields. So 22 total hexes should have 5 or more fields. And the way I'm doing that, is I'm making them into cities. So I've got a very brief chart here for what the different clans are doing and kind of how involved and invested they are here. Some of them are just there to shitpost. You know, the Kyran aren't really there to establish like a beachhead anywhere. They are there to treasure hunt. They want the stuff that's here. The Lions, however, are there to conquer this land. So they have a city. And it's a fortress city, so they use that as a staging point for going on raids, going to war, that kind of thing. So they have a deeper investment overall. But I wrote what all the clans are doing there, kind of what their stake in this is. And then from there, I made some cities. I got 4 out of 5 of them. The 5th one I know what it's going to be. It's going to be a Silver Phoenix City. I just need to get some ideas for it. But I don't know how good this camera is, but yeah, to kind of give you an idea. This is very, very low craft stuff. Right now, this is all high concept. I decided that there was only going to be, there's only 7 factions, so if you have a lot of hexes, there's the first page, by the way. If you have a lot of factions, or if you have a lot of hex space to fill, you're going to note that even with 7 factions, which is a big amount, that's the Vampire the Masquerade number of factions, even with that many, like, if you do 1 faction per, or 1 hex per faction, you're going to have tons of empty space. So what I realized very rapidly was that some of these cities are going to be multi-tracked. The actual average of these, so I've got 22 hexes to fill up total, is going to be right about 5 hexes per city. So what that means is that if you look at the hexes here, the way hexes work is they always have 6 adjacent to them, right? So for a truly large city, it would look like a big hex, and a big hex for me is something that is roughly the equivalent of a hex shape, in this case the central hex and its surrounding 6 hexes. It would look really close to that, like a very, very big city would spill out. It would have like and each one of these tracks would be like a district of the city. So mine are going to be 5, so they're about a little more than half of the big hex. So they're going to be the top 3 hexes and the bottom 2, or the top 2 and the bottom 3. Or, you know, something that's kind of like that, like these diagonal 3 and these diagonal 2. You know, so like 2104, 3103, 3104, 4104, 4105. like that would be a typical city for the amount of hexes I got here. If I want to just kind of like very, this is very like ELI view stuff. Individual cities may be bigger or smaller. I might have one that's like 2 or 3 hexes. I might have one that's like 7 hexes. I don't know. But as of now, I know that the number I'm shooting for per city is about 5 hexes. So right away, I know that when I'm thinking about the tracks of the city, I need to think about them in terms of these big districts. And I think that's really cool because it means I can switch up terrain within the same city, and that feels a little more organic, like how cities really work in our real world. Like if you look at San Francisco, there's the Golden Gate Bridge spans huge geographic disparities, right? It's over this huge body of water. It's going into this like dense metropolis area. Like it's coming from a completely different kind of terrain. I don't know exactly where it expands to. I'm not in California here, but that's what cities look like. Some cities, like in South American cities, are built. They have like ocean, jungle, mountain, right? And in the middle, there's like this metropolis. So like that's a ton of different kinds of terrain, and you can organically think about that as tracks which were formerly these things and have now slowly transformed into that, plus really built up civilizations. And it means that you can have a lot of variety in the fields that you have there, which means inspiration should come easier. Mountain path, mountain summit, holy temple, tourist district. Like right away, I've got 4 whole fields, that are really rich, and it feels like a really good fight can happen there. And I've barely even scratched the surface about thinking about like a track that I'm putting together. Like so that's a nice dense, text that works beautifully. Like and that's what you want to do when you're designing your hexes. When you're designing for a lot of content, you need to make certain that it is something that will be really easy to fill up things. Like 22 individual cities, all with their own history, all with their own stuff, each one crammed into a hex would be way too dense. But 5 cities, which have background rulers and what have you, that function as domains, that have 5 hexes each. And each hex is a track with 5 fields in it, and it covers a terrain type. That's a lot easier to prep for. So that's a comfortable place for me as a GM when I'm prepping. So that was a fun little breakthrough that I got just from digging into this. So that's the 10%. That's the densest prep I'm going to do, is those 5 cities. I've also got something called little nodes, which are little, and you can see that I just did little bar and circle charts. Little nodes of 3 fields. So they're less developed than cities. Sorry, I'm on a diet. I've been on the greenhouse or something. So you're gonna hear my stomach making weird noises. For those, I wanted roughly 40% of this map to be that. Like a really good chunk of this map is going to be 3 field hexes. Again, I'm going to have different terrain types. I decided the general terrain types here are going to be desert, toxic, which is a nice open one that I can probably be really creative with, ruins, mountains, tunnels, and jungles. And tunnels are going to be underneath hexes. So I'm kind of making more work for myself there. Generally, I advise against doing that. Excuse me. Because what I'm doing there by saying, oh, there's tunnels underneath here, is I'm saying that I'm going to take all of these 219 hexes and I'm going to add more nodes beyond those hexes that interconnect them, and those are going to have their own prep. So I'm actually adding more prep for myself there. You should generally not do that. Generally, when you have nodes that are as like rigorously defined as these, they're hexes, for example, that should be all that you worry about in terms of prep. You shouldn't be hunting for more prep to do. So I'm going to do it because it's implied by the way the Brotherhood of Freaks works. However, I'm going to be... In Blood from God's Eye, most of the content of the tunnel was procedurally generated. It was otherwise kind of just like a highway that went between 2 places. So the actual prep was super minimalized. That's what I'm going to do with tunnels. They're going to be largely procedurally generated. However, I do want there to be individual underground things which comprise the majority of what you would find in otherwise unassuming hex. I'm fine with that because I've got empty spaces. At 25%, these are hexes that just have a general terrain description and there's nothing in them. I'm going to have a couple of procedural charts, a little spice to those, but that's it. Beyond the procedural elements, I have no prep to do for 25% of these hexes. So the 55 hexes, I can write off. I just do the procedural charts, which are probably going to be 10-point charts. I'm not going to overthink these. I might do breeder charts, which is where you have 2 sets of 10. So you, or a set of 10 and a set of 5 or whatever, where you roll a d10 and you can read across, or you can roll 2d10 and like cross in different ways, and that gives you more content out of a very small amount of things. So 20 points winds up being able to generate a much larger number than 20. I think it's 100 all said and told. I have to do the math. No, wait, is it? Damn it! Or is it? Or is it like 9, 8, 7, 6, etc.? Ah, crap. I don't know where I'm at. I'll do the math on it later. I think it's 180 was is it? Damn it. It's gonna bother me. Alright. So yeah, the little nodes are going to be 88 hexes total, 3 total fields in a tract. So those are going to be tracts. In the core book, I define tracts as things like mountains, forests, lakes, terrain features that are large and recognizable from a distance and stable. And the reason I define them that way is because when you're hex crawling, you have like the Fallout thing, where you as a character can look around in this map that you're looking at here, and what you see, those are all tracts. You see a mountain to your south. Okay, that mountain, if you go there, that is a tract. You see a huge dinosaur statue, you know, over here in what is this, 206? If you go there, that dinosaur statue is the biggest attraction in like a big theme park or something. And so that is tract. I do it that way because that's how you, that's the most organic way that you explore, is I see a thing on the horizon, I go to it. I was recently playing, what's the sequel to Breath of the Wild with my kid? Tears of the Kingdom. And it was the same thing. When you finally get to the surface, you explore that game, you just look around, whatever's on the horizon, you see individual terrain features that stick out to you, and you go towards them. When you get there, there is a thing. So that's a tract, right? So I've got 88 unique terrain features to do, and some of them are not going to be so unique. Like, for example, I was talking about having a mountain range up here in the north. If each one of those is its own tract, as an individual mountain, that's it, right? Now I have to think of three fields per mountain, but that shouldn't be too hard. 3 is a pretty small number, you know? And mountain trail, small village, weird feature, like that's not that hard. You know, and it's the same thing with any kind of tract. If there's like a forest, I guess I actually have jungles here. If it's a jungle, you know, it could, again, you've got trail, feature, small village. Like, it's not that hard to do. And you kind of get a freebie out of the terrain itself, because the terrain description can generate spontaneous fields. And the procedural elements of this are going to help in moments where there's lower fidelity between your preps. So like, let's say, for example, they're exploring the jungle, and all you've prepped is there is a jungle here, and then you've got like a one-sentence description of a village full of, I don't know, cannibals. Cannibals are a classic thing to put in a jungle, right? There's a cursed idol somewhere. There's a huge cursed like idol that's like got blood sacrifice stuff, and maybe you can get like a link to the art of sorcerer if you sacrifice something there. There you go. There's a freebie for you. And there's a trail between them, right? There's this long meandering trail that's filled with traps. You know, it's been to test the metal of the faithful. There you go. All right. They decide to head into the jungle. They're like, we don't want to go to the idol, we just want to go into the jungle and see what's there. Okay, well, if you have a procedure for what happens when they go into a jungle that generates a place, and an inhabitant, or a treasure, or all three ideally, you can just roll on that. And suddenly, they discover something that was always in the jungle. You haven't prepped it yet, but there was actually a fourth field there. And when you write it down, it's just as much a part of your prep as all of this stuff is, right? Easy peasy. So that's something that's really important too when it comes to this sort of game. When you make a game this way, when you run a game this way, is you want the ability to, in the fidelity space between your prep, you want to be able to wedge in more fidelity as needed. So that's what the breeder charts are for. That's what the procedural stuff is for. It's for saying, okay, I didn't bother to prep anything in this jungle. And there should be, you should also have the ability for a null result there, where it's just like, okay, you wander through the trackless jungle for a while, you start mapping it out, you realize that there really is just a bunch of jungle here and there. Like there's animals, there's jaguars and giant wasps and things like that, but there's nothing, there's unfortunately no treasure, there's no monsters, there's no hidden villages, there's no secret paths. You know, you map it out, it's just jungle. And that's fine. That's totally fine, because now you have a wood resource node. And you can be like, oh yeah, it's definitely a rich wood resource node. So if they conquer it, they can cut it down and get wood. You know, they can harvest it. That's the thing. You can also say it was like a food resource node. Like you can, it's a poor one because of the danger to food ratio is really bad. But yeah, if you wanted to send people in here to get bananas or coconuts or whatever it produces, then you totally could. You'd have food. The game is robust enough, as I've designed it, that even if you get a null result, you sort of still get the implied thing that's there, right? And you can, there's a clear path to creating the level of fidelity that your players demand. That is, oh God. Okay, that was the single thing that was so worrisome to me when I was designing the game was, what if the players demand more fidelity? It's a low fidelity system with low fidelity rules, low fidelity prep. And low fidelity is great when it comes to prep because, as I've been trying to demonstrate to you guys, you don't need to put a whole lot in to get a whole lot out. That's like the perfect ratio. I have limited free time. I have one day off tomorrow, and I want to see how much of this I can get done because I have all my chores throughout the week. So tomorrow I can just sit on my fat ass and do this all day. And what I would like to do is just do that concept work and just start writing down hex entries. I'd also like to pretty up this a little bit. This is a little bit cold, and I would like to do like some actual, some color behind these hexes, and maybe a little bit of light art to bring them up a little bit so they look a little nicer. So I've got like a product, that I can actually feel good about selling to people. But that's all polish. What you really need is the content, right? Even if it was just this and this with descriptions, that would still work, right? That would still be content that you need. And I'm not talking about content. I shouldn't cross-pollinate content with polish. Those are completely different tasks. All right. Anyway, so that's the little notes. My method for getting them. They're gonna be tracks. They're gonna have 3 fields each, and again, they're gonna, in that fidelity space between them, we're going to have these procedurals for the terrain types. It's going to give us more stuff if the players decide to demand a higher level of fidelity. Great. But we can always rise the level of fidelity that the players demand. That's a very important function of any prep. It has to have the capacity easily for the GM, while they're running it, to be able to rise to the level of fidelity that the players demand. And you need to be able to record that and make it a part of your prep, so that you have a consistent world. So we are designing that right now. We're constructing that. And I'm really pleased that, again, by using the inherited wisdom of hexcrawls and what have you, and designing that in my game, that I can use that information. And it works. I'm pleased about this. We already covered the empty spaces. Those are just procedural. They're just going to be like, oh, there is some forest here. There is desert here. Okay, roll and see if there's anything remarkable in this hex. Easy. So 55 hexes I don't know about. The remaining 55 hexes, the remaining 25% there, are going to be single sentence. One sentence. And this, I was inspired by the Carcosa book. I don't remember who wrote that one. But it's a beautiful little book, and it has hundreds of hexes, and most of their content is something like, there is a tribe of whatever is here, and they do this. And it's like 1 or 2 sentences. And the idea for that is I'm going to make a single field with some inhabitants that are doing a thing. And that's it. Maybe those inhabitants are monsters, maybe those inhabitants are people, and there's going to be 55 of those. So writing 55 sentences isn't that rough. That you basically have to have 55 ideas for things. I think I've got, for just this Toxic Desert hexcrawl, I think I've got 55 good enough ideas that with one sentence I should be able to kind of pitch an encounter, the equivalent of a single encounter, maybe an hour's worth of content at the very most, to an adventuring party. We're just going to go off and explore and see what's there. Okay, they happen across Hex 4206 down here, and, you know, there's one of the things I pitched on Discord was there's an oil derrick with a flamethrower on top that's staffed by like 25 radioactive scorpions that are just like entry level grunts, and they've got like a second degree hero that has decided that that's his ticket to fame. That's it. You know, you don't need much for that. The rules for the game, again, if you have the rules, even if you just have radioactive scorpion, second degree hero, and that's all the information that you have from them, if you crack open the rules and you go to the character advancement section, right in those, if you look under second degree hero, it gives you the breakdown of exactly what type and how many techniques they need. So procedurally on that spot, if they decide to fight him, or they decide to do anything with him, you need more fidelity. You know, like, oh, what techniques does he know? All right, well, he knows, you know, 6 Novice and 3 Master. I don't remember what the actual numbers are. Let's say he knows 6 Novice and 3 Master and a Form type. Okay, well, he's a radioactive scorpion, so you choose one of the two styles, you decide he's a gunslinger, and you take Path of the Bullet, and you give him all the Novice techniques, the Form technique, and all 3, I guess it would be Expert techniques, not Master techniques, all 3 Expert techniques. And he's done. That's it. Obviously, he has a gun, because that's what you use in that style. And that's it. If you want to give him a magic weapon, I think there's only one magic gun that I designed in the game, and you can give it to him. Why not? Or you just give him a cool gun. He's gonna have a sawed-off shotgun. That's the kind of ranged fighter he is. You know, close ranged. he's got a shotgun, and that's it. You give him a name, and you're good. Actually, I'll probably provide the name in the one-sentence description. You know, I'll call him, you know, Luckless Desperado or something like that. You know, actually, I've already got a Luckless Schwan. How about what's a good one? Something Desperado. It's got to be Handsome. We'll call him Handsome Desperado. Muy guapo. Muy guapo, the Handsome Desperado. I love it. So yeah, good old Muy guapo will be your second degree hero. And, you know, maybe he's got a charming and vivacious personality. I don't know. Did I say vivacious? I meant vivacious. You didn't hear that. You heard vivacious. Magic. Anyway, so yeah, that's the remainder of my prep. It's going to be very, very light stuff. Just whatever ideas pop into my head. That's a good one. I think that when it comes to post-apocalyptic stuff, there's a deep and untapped well where I haven't really been, like, I've not been defining a lot of content, and I'd like to start dipping into that well here, just so that newbie GMs or GMs that are low on prep time can use this thing, and it should be plug and play. You know, read the description, fill in the blanks to the level of fidelity that you need when you need it, when the process is outlined, and then just play the game. Just do it winds up being player directed, and whenever it isn't player directed, it's going to be volatility directed. Something is going to show up and ruin their day. So yeah, really, really easy to do. The only thing I'm missing there is events, and I think I can, in the little nodes and the big nodes, total of 110 nodes that are going to be pretty thick to populate. Those are where I'm going to wind up putting events. Now, thinking of 110 unique adventure hooks feels like a lot. That might be where I spend the majority of my actual time doing crap. Like, what would be an interesting adventure here? I will probably, not definitely, but I will probably go back to the Lores chapter in my own book and use that as inspiration. But because I know what the clans are doing, by and large, because I'm going to be designing some big movers and shakers, some higher degree, 6th, 7th, 8th degree badasses, a lot of the plots are going to direct you to deal with them, either as enemies or as potential allies or something like that. So those are characters that are going to, a lot of events are going to kind of point you in that direction. Same thing with any cool treasures. I might put like, what is the equivalent of Tiger Soul that I designed, that really deadly destructive weapon? I might put that just somewhere in here as a treasure to be hunted. Because there's a lot of treasure hunters in here. The Emerald Caravan are doing treasure hunting, the Brotherhood of Freaks are treasure hunting, Silver Phoenix are treasure hunting, the Vipers are treasure hunting here. So, like, I want there to be treasure for them to hunt. You know, not just nodes and not just wealth, but like magic stuff, ancient kung fu manuals, that kind of thing. So, like, with those, having big treasures that are secret at first, but a lot of events point you towards, like, that's the ideal thing in hexcrawl. You want all your adventure hooks to point them to the cool stuff that you've prepped. They don't have to take the hooks if they don't want to, it's up to them, but you do want to put up signposts, and adventure hooks, events, in other words, are a great way to do that. So, a lot of those are just going to flow from what I'm already doing here. But yeah, that's the basic idea. How long has this video gone? Let's just do an OBS real quick. I've been doing this for... Oh, I'm not used to looking at this. Well, it's probably been a while. Holy crap, I look so fat and lazy in this. I really should have looked at this beforehand. Anyway, that's what I'm working on right now. I'm actually about to go to bed. I just took my melatonin. But tomorrow, we're going to be taking this prep and just pitching ideas over on Discord. I've already got, I think it was Enix, was talking about a non-Euclidean supermall that, like, drags people into it. I might have to put it in. That's kind of a funny idea. Anyway, yeah, this video is long enough. You get the idea. I just wanted to sit over here and talk to you guys for a while about what I was doing and give you some insight into the process in case you were a kind of crazy person interested in that sort of thing, which, I mean, I definitely am. So, that's enough for now. I'm going to hit fade to black. I'm going to see what that does. I'm not used to this version of OBS, so let's see if that ends the video. Oh, look at that. That looks cool. Alright, fair enough. See you later, guys.